Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Good morning, everyone. It's Andrew with The Market Mindset. It's a real pleasure to welcome Robert Rohlfing, the Executive Chairman of the board, as well as the CEO of Desert Mountain Energy. It's great to catch up with you. Let's just get one thing right off the table, right off the bat, because I'll call it a big buying opportunity, a week ago? That's what I exactly looked at it. So it was a big win for me. I was happy, but maybe you could address that with your own thoughts as to what happened there. You could just read stuff on the forums, which I always find entertaining, but maybe you could give us your position on what had happened.
It's when we originally did our due diligence, years back, working with McCauley, we had questions on some things and we brought it up to them. And then also because like with any large family that has a lot of family members, who's died, who's buried, who's married, and who's getting married, or there's new kids, and there's coming of age, becoming adults. So they decided at that point, they needed to restructure how they did their entire minerals for the family. And so it took them quite a while to do it. They didn't instantly run out and do it. It took them a while to work through it. And so when we signed a lease with them, that was who we signed with was Chevron Minerals, and it's their company. It's an LLC, family owned, but that's the way they set it up. And as of today's date, there's no suits filed. It's just somebody made a claim, and so the McCauleys, as rightfully within their position, they're working their way through it. So they just have to figure it out, and they are. So it's not slowing us down. No. We've already or will be within a week, we'll be laying the flow lines from the individual wells back to where the processing center will be. So there's a number of things. It's just going ahead, and it's, I told a lot of people when the stock is going down, I said, this is nothing but a buying, because the fundamentals of the company have not changed. In fact, because again, it goes back to, I always say, I'm always working 5 years out. And some people, I'm building a company. I'm not interested in making a quick, turn on a buck for a stock. I'm not playing 25 cents on a stock. I'm building a company. And so in that, my mindset is totally different. I'm not playing stocks. And I've been taken to task repeatedly about that I'm not concerned enough. And it's like, no, I understand what my job is, and I'm building a long-term company. We are building a fully vertically integrated helium company that is building the first processing center in the world that's going to run off solar. I mean, nobody else has done it. So in Monday's press release with Beam Earth, I put in there how we had, by design, taken the power consumption, reduced it by 55%, which is what makes it possible. And that's one thing that Beam had caught up on when we were overseas and talking, and Pierre was in France, and a number of people from Beam are from France and London. So, we had discussions with people. And when I spoke at a conference in Paris, the thing that most people picked up on was that and they wanted to know, how did you reduce the power consumption by 55%? It's huge. That's what makes it so many things possible. and it obviously, I'm not going to run to the Arctic and try that, because it would only be good for 6 months out of, a few months out of the year. You can't run that everywhere. But especially in Arizona, in the mid states, and going further south, it would work. So it's just application. And there was a lot of other things that I had applied for, since, again, it goes back. I've been working on building the plant since 2008. You don't just wake up one day and pull this out. You have to do things. Then I had to work with a university and a couple other companies, and where we experimented, and it was full-on experimentation. That's long before I was working for this company. I was trying to anticipate the engineering aspects, and I freely admit there are some things I missed. And when James Hayes got involved with us, James looked at it totally different set of eyes. I don't know. There's a couple of things. I think it took him 45 minutes to come up with a solution. I mean, and that's what's fun when you have people who are bright, intelligent. It works easier, and it's a team, and that's in fact, this week, James is actually back in Pennsylvania, where one of the components for the hydrogen separation and how we handle the hydrogen, how that's being handled. That was being handled by a separate company back east, and they were supposed to have had the thing built and tested already a month and a half ago. Well, they had supply chain issues. It's like every other corporation right now. Yes. It's supply chain issues, one thing after another. So you just work through it. They're getting it built. And so this is the final test run, and then they'll ship that to Generon. And this is kind of there's a number of different components to this. And one of the issues in dealing with hydrogen is storage. You can't pressurize it. There's so many different aspects to it. So it's, how do you do this? And we had such a small amount that after the initial startup, the plant that we put together, we're actually don't just create water with the excess, because that's what it is. It just create water. We're in the middle of a desert. And there's pure water. And then looking forward, people want to know, well, what about the nitrogen? What you don't end up doing? Well, again, this gets back to what would we do eventually with the hydrogen. Again, I'm talking down the road. This is not going to happen this year. And people had wondered, well, why can't you sell the nitrogen? And you do. Well, there's just not a close market for it. Well, so we're going to create our own market when we work with the hydrogen. One of the things that we've really looked at closely is a cost-effective way to manufacture ammonia. The chemical symbol or chemical makeup of ammonia is NH3, so nitrogen, hydrogen, and three-part, of hydrogen. So that will give us an additional, and that won't take that much nitrogen, but it's just a way to help monetize it. And that was the other thing in dealing with beam. How do you monetize things?
Yes.
It's nebulous. It is. And I freely admit that. And I'm not going to wait around. I don't want to wait around for filling stations. We can do that. We can get into, the difference between just stripping and burning a little bit of hydrogen in a regular, internal combustion engine to generate electricity, or do you use fuel cells? There's about, depending on what type of fuel cell, there's anywhere from about a 3.5 to a 6.5% increase by using a fuel cell in efficiency. You're still not over 50%.
Yes,
you're not. So, and you still have the outtake of what are you creating with the excess? Water.
Yeah, water. Yeah.
So it's just, and the guys at Beam, I'm just really tickled because when Pierre flew over here from Paris, and he and I have had a chance to sit down all day. We sat outside on the patio, and we have enough chemical and engineering background and mineralogy that we could discuss the entire array of what's going on. And, that was a very tightly worded press release. And I think not everything will always be on every area and every jurisdiction. We will expand, and there we're going to be cooperating together. Some areas, maybe it may not make sense or not be any hydrogen, so we won't. And they're running and looking at some other areas with hydrogen that would have some trace amounts of helium. And because our system can be downsized to something small, but still have a higher throughput. And the in general thing that folks don't understand, there's different ways to run plants. The way we designed the plant is you strip out everything else first. First thing you drop is any kind of liquid. Second thing you drop is hydrogen. Third thing, then you're into the rest of the things, nitrogen, and then you get down into the noble gases if you have them.
Yeah.
So our process center is so cost effective to use that we're looking to work with them where it makes sense to.
Okay.
And jurisdictions, the word jurisdictions, should be pretty obvious. We're looking outside just one or two states.
Yes.
I mean, that's so that's an obvious expansion.
Yes.
And again,
Yes.
that's not an instant overnight, but it gives us a way, because they know of some stuff where they want to look at, but they're looking at something that could cost effectively strip 0.7 to 1.1% helium. Actually, our plant is designed to run down to 0.3, and that's not running on solar. Running on solar, we can actually cost effectively run it down to 0.08, wow, which is just really minute. But if you don't have solar, then and depending on what the pressures are, wellhead pressures, there's so many variables to this. Because of the way with pressure swing absorption and membrane technology works, where we've put them together. And again, like I've said before, membrane technology has been around for 70 plus years. It's just older style require a lot of energy.
Yes.
And this is one of the things that some of the folks I've talked to and on emails and other things, I've tried to really stress to them the level of innovations that we're using in this. And it's not just that we're having to create everything. It's not. There's so many innovations that were out there. They have other applications. And by bringing it in and tweaking it and adding an additional aspect to it, it makes it work.
It's fascinating to see where this can go as well. So when you start looking at the different gases that are there, it's fascinating to see there's ways to monetize this, and then the creations and the technologies that are being developed so quickly that can answer a lot of the problems that we're facing.
Yeah, and it's still an all-in type of situation. You can't just write off everything. Depending on where you're at on planet Earth, you have to use fossil fuels for this or this. They're just a combination. Nuclear works in there in areas, and until they get more aspects down with the liquids, liquid salt for nuclear and fusion, and there are so many great things happening out there, and that's where not to dive off against media, but there's so much negative.
It is a lot, yeah.
And I think sometimes folks can accidentally get wrapped up into that everything is negative. And really, there's like people like us, and there's a lot of other companies, Beam, and there's other companies and people around the world that are excited for what the opportunities. And that's one of the things I'm going to be covering when I go. I'll be speaking here in August to the Society of Petroleum Engineers at the biennial conference in Bangkok. And that's one of the things I'm going to cover there. And it's like, how do you transition the traditional oil and gas over the next 30 years? You still have to have the oil because you create so many of the great products we have to make life easier. You got to have the oil. Well, it's like, how do you go forward on some of the other aspects and kind of save that back for the most important things? And so as you transition away from a lot of the carbon, trying to the best that we can do and that's one of the things in speaking over there, majority of their power generated by coal.
Yes.
And India and China, I mean, it's like there's so much of that. So even if we were to totally change out, they're still building them. The coal-fired plants, commissioning one every 11 days or 12 days in China. And it's just, people just don't understand how much coal, how much fossil fuels that requires.
Yes. And an unintended consequences of the entire energy situation is you've got Germany over the past year to date, is a major coal user again now, because they haven't actually been transitioning properly. I mean, not to be too critical, but this is sometimes what happens when politicians get too excited, set a tone, and then don't have an actual plan to have the energy in place to satisfy the needs. Yeah,
and people still have to live.
Yeah,
you still have to, and the war in Ukraine is, it's unfortunate. There's going to be people in Africa and other places, really, because that is the breadbasket of Europe and a lot of Africa.
Yes.
And so there's so many things that cannot be instantly undone. And that's a negative. And I just choose to, yes, I'm aware of a lot of negative, but I try to stay, just because that's why I work 70 to 90 hours a week, is I am focused on what can we do on a growth and building the team, and how do we expand the team. I freely admit I will probably be announcing that I'm stealing more people from other companies, and that's fine because it gives, you see people who they're doing a great job, but they just within certain organizations, doesn't mean the organization is bad, but they just don't flourish there. And so you give them a different setting to where they can actually flourish and use their talents and their brains and come up with things. And it's like, may not do all of that, but it's just in working through these issues and where we want to expand and how we deal with different aspects of it. It's fun.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great place to end this, because we always like to talk a lot, and I really appreciate you spending the time. I know you've got like literally thousands of things going on at the same time. So for you to be able to take a step out with us and chat with us, we really appreciate it. And as always, we look forward to news releases, anything that comes out as the story continues to unfold.
Thank you. You have a great week.
All the best, Robert. Take care.
Bye.